Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Akiona Law podcast, wherein we talk about anything and everything that intersects in the areas of family law and divorce. I am Lani Akiona, and today I'm excited to introduce you to my guest. She is Jennifer Keilin. She has an MSW and an LICSW. She is a Washington-based mental health specialist with over 2 decades of experience helping families transition from conflict to cooperation. She specializes in court-involved family dynamics, high conflict co-parenting, and comprehensive family assessments using a blend of clinical analysis and compassionate counseling. Jennifer has been a speaker and presenter at many Washington family law continuing legal educations. I have used her in cases before. She's great. She has just this wealth of information and knowledge. And I am so excited to have her on today, especially since this is her first time doing a podcast. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much. That was so kind. I'm really happy to be here today. It's a pleasure.
Well, I've always enjoyed your presentations at our continuing legal educations, our CLEs, and it's just in the areas of high oh gosh, I just lost my in the areas of parent-child contact problems, formerly known as parental alienation. The wealth of knowledge that you have is just amazing. Can
Mm,
you tell us a little
thank
bit
you.
though before we get started about how you got into doing this work?
Ooh, yeah. Let's see, broadly speaking, when I got out of my graduate degree program, I started working for child welfare services, doing child protective services investigation. And through that, I met a forensic psychologist here in Seattle, and I started working in his office, supporting him with the psychological assessments that he was doing. And he did parenting evaluations and GAL work, et cetera. And so was able,
1 second. For GAL, that means
yeah.
guardian ad litem.
Yes, thank you. Guardian ad litem work, investigations. And so I just received a wealth of training and information that built onto the practices that I'd already done with families, through investigations, et cetera. And so in 2003, I went into private practice and I was primarily conducting parenting evaluations and guardian ad litem investigations. Over time, in the field, saw, I like to think I've seen almost every kind of family there is, although families keep changing. So I probably haven't, and saw just a lot of different problems. And over time, the higher conflict families became an increasing focus for the legal field and for myself as well. And then more and more, the phenomenon of these parent child contact problems became a more pressing concern. And over time, my practice evolved from doing the investigations to wanting to do the interventions. I wanted to help the families where they were at. And so for the last, 5 or 6 years, that's primarily the work that I've been doing, is working with families that are involved in family law cases, with a pretty significant percentage of them ones where a child is refusing or really resisting contact with the parent.
Oh, thank you for that. And you touched upon parent-child contact problems. And in the legal industry, we love to use acronyms. So it's called PCCP for short,
Correct.
parent-child contact problems. And these terms have been bandied about, right? First, it was parental alienation, and then it's
Yes.
also justified rejection. Now, does that all falls under the umbrella of parent-child contact problems, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Anytime you have a parent and a child that there's some sort of challenge with their contact together,
Mhm.
that's the big umbrella category for the variety of um, things that explain that behavior. So justified rejection might explain that behavior. A small, small, small percentage of cases, it is truly parental alienation. A lot of cases, the majority of cases we find it's what we call hybrid, where it's a mix of behaviors between two parents and a child and other factors as well. But they all go into the category of PCCP.
Okay. So when you see these, can you go a little bit into justified rejection and like what have you seen? What does that mean?
Yeah, so justified rejection is a category where a child refuses contact with the parent because of something that the parent has done that is the primary driving factor, like far and away the largest factor. So it might be abuse.
Yeah.
It might be some sort of really poor parenting that interacts with the child's particular vulnerabilities that create a situation where the child just cannot manage the contact. But it's not because the other parent has contributed to undermining the relationship or
Right.
behave badly. It's
Right.
because of the direct experience that the child has had with that parent.
So let me just try and clarify this. So let's just say we have mom and dad, and let's say dad is a primary parent, and mom, and let's just say she has mental health issues. And because of her mental health issues, she is unable to give her child the I don't want to say the proper parenting, but in a way the proper nurturing and support that a child needs. And so the child no longer wants to see mom and has nothing to do with dad.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And in a situation like that, you could have a parent with mental health issues that's unreliable, that when they are present, they're just really a difficult personality that is overwhelming for the child, et cetera. Those
Chaotic.
kinds of interactions.
Yeah.
Yeah. That the child just is not able to cope with that.
Well, because the child, in a way, when the child has to parent the parent, the child doesn't
Yes.
feel safe and secure.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So thank you. That really helps in understanding parent-child contact problems and justified rejection, where it is the child, in a way, rejecting the parent, saying, you're just too unstable for me. And it's nothing to do with, let's say, dad. Okay, so let's flip it around where we have parental alienation. And that's a big term that's bandied about in courtrooms.
Yes.
And I've used it myself.
Mhm. Sure.
Can you, and I swear I've only used it when it was justified.
Of
Um,
course.
yeah. But can you explain to our listeners out there what is parental alienation?
Yeah, so parental alienation, the concept is that the that the the parent and the child that are having the contact problem, that actually, if it were not for the behaviors of the other parent undermining
Ah,
and intentionally damaging the relationship, they would not have a problem. So it's that, this parent has adequate parenting, this child has a, good experience with this parent.
yeah, yeah.
But there's the other parent that is manipulating and undermining the relationship so that the, child may become fearful or overly aligned, or they end up rejecting the parent, not because of their direct experiences with the parent and not because of that parent's own challenges or own parenting.
Got it. So to break it down, to do my example again. So again, we've got dad and mom, and now mom doesn't have any issues.
Right.
She's doesn't have any substance abuse issues, doesn't have mental health issues. She's an adequate, capable, and loving parent. But dad is the one who is now, in a way, I guess, bad mouthing mom in front of the child. So when dad does that, dad is in a way manipulating child to see mom as like the bad person.
Right.
Then the child now is like, no, I don't want to spend time with you, mom. And it's nothing to do with mom. It's because the child is being so heavily influenced and manipulated
Yeah.
by the father.
Yeah. It's generally a full-on campaign.
It's a campaign. Yeah.
Yeah. And some, we see it in a number of ways. We see it through false allegations of sexual abuse,
Oh,
where a child has, been um, told, so to speak, what happened to them, by this other parent, by the parent that's um, alienating, and so doing the alienating behavior. So it can be a whole gamut of ways that a parent engages in those kinds of behaviors, but it ends up often where a child is, they got to choose one parent or the other, you know and so they can be manipulated in that way. Now, I want to be clear that is a very, very small slice of the folks that we see. It tends to be a
really?
very
Oh,
small slice. Yeah, that is not by any means the majority. What I will say, sometimes we have problems with language because if PCCP is the category and a subcategory is parental
okay.
alienation, there's another word that we call, or concept that we call parental alienating behaviors.
Oh,
And
okay.
so that's a subset of damaging behaviors that a parent engages in through the child that can impact the child, but though it's the I would put parental alienating behaviors on a spectrum of, like 1 to 10. And so a child that's been where it's all parental alienation, that would be a 10. That's a parent, really, really campaigning, really doing a lot of things. Um, but there's a lot of lower level behaviors that we will see those in cases of where there's parent-child contact problems, but they don't rise all the way to the full level of parental alienating the
Right.
child.
Okay.
So the behaviors aren't as severe. They might be some. And honestly, a lot of both parents engage in parental alienating behaviors in many ways. Both
Mm,
parents it's not uncommon for both parents to badmouth the other parent to the child. I mean, technically that's a parental alienating behavior, right? We don't want
right.
any parent to do that. But it's most people, they're not trying to be a bad person, but they're caught up in their own experience. And so they let things slide, they let things
Yeah.
slip, right?
Right.
So it really has to be so we do see those kinds of behaviors and want as working with these families, I'm always wanting to clean those up. But truthfully, we do see those from both sides where,
Yeah.
people are just they're making mistakes, but they're not trying to undermine the relationship and have, only this child love only them and 100% reject the other parent for their own emotional needs. That is not where most parents are.
Wow. That's so I didn't realize, well, I guess I should have realized, but it just seems like in family law, it's those high conflict cases that are just they wouldn't be in court unless it's high conflict, and that's normally where I've seen that parental alienation, alienating, the actual parental alienation.
Mhm.
And to be open, I'm at the tail end of a 2-year divorce, of a 25-year marriage, and my spouse, gay, engaged in parental alienating behavior. And,
Mhm.
just for the listeners out there, what it was involving our child who was, when the process started, he was 16 years old. He was a junior in high school. It was involving him directly in the proceedings. Every single
Mhm.
proceeding that happened, that he involved my child in, and it was you, and the blame was on me. Your mother did this. Your mother this, and it was aligning my child with him, and I was rejected. And it's tough. It's tough when you go from being a primary parent to being the favored parent to then being the excluded parent
Yeah.
where, where like a month would go by and I would see my child for 2 hours. And he was 16 and he was driving, and he's in one of those gray areas that it's hard to have visits, but
Yeah.
it's tough. I
It
had
is.
I had less time than someone who was going through addiction issues and has supervised visits.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It is really hard. Therapeutically, when I work with families where a child is in that age group,
yeah.
I think about their developmental stage and, where are they at? Of all the things on their, list of things to do in a day, do they want to deal with mom and dad's stuff? Nope. They
Yeah.
want to do other stuff. And it's just a really difficult time developmentally to engage kids in a solution. They just want it all to go away. And that's um, oftentimes their problem solving mechanism. I'll just ignore it. And eventually it's not going to be an issue. And they're right, because in a couple of years, they'll be in maybe college or, things will be different. And so, it's really hard. I have a difficult time engaging kids in that age group but future you is going to really be grateful that today you was part of the solution. They're some kids do it, some kids buy in, some kids less. So yeah,
Well, and this is what I realized too, and I'm just telling the listeners out there, it is an incredibly painful experience, and it wasn't the marriage was ending that caused me that I was grieving. It was a loss of a relationship with my son because I was the one that left the family home because I had to get out. But I see now that in a way, my son had to align with his father because he had no choice. He was in that home and he was stuck in that home. And in a way, it was his own survival mechanism. Not
hmm
only that, I was the safe parent because my son knew deep down inside that I loved him unconditionally and that I would always be there for him. And that's one thing I had to keep on reaching out, telling him that
yeah,
I loved him. Um, uh
yeah,
just trying to see him, and so so in that situation, I just had to accept the fact that he was doing what he needed to do to survive.
yeah.
So,
It's interesting how many kids are so rejecting of a parent, and then they're so mad when that parent doesn't try. I didn't even get a birthday card, which I probably would have thrown away, you know, and kids are so, because they're kids,
they're kids.
they want to be invited. They don't necessarily want to go to the party. And
Yeah.
so, and it's really hard for a parent. A lot of parents, one of the challenges that I see with parents is that there's often what I would call counter rejecting behavior.
Yeah.
Parents are human, they get their feelings hurt.
Yeah.
They, can engage in, oh, you rejected me. Fine. I'm upset too, and it's human, and, it's really hard. It's just not the best solution.
No, and
There's
I
no good solution, right? But that's definitely not a good one.
I think I'm lucky because I do what I do. I was able to connect with some other experienced individuals. For example, Karen Bunnell
Yeah.
is really known in the Washington in here in Washington as being one of the forerunners of the oh gosh, of being
Collaborative.
being just a specialist in
Yeah.
parent parent-child coaching.
Yes.
And so she was the one that encouraged me, keep on reaching out to your child. It doesn't matter if your child continues to reject you. Keep on reach. So folks, that's what I'm telling you right now. If you're in that position that you're the rejected parent, keep on reaching out to your child. Keep on saying that you love them. Keep inviting them to do things because your child does need that. Let your child know that you love them unconditionally, and let them know that you're proud of them. Like I would tell my son, I'm just proud of you for being an amazing person. I love the fact that you have such a generous and kind, caring spirit. So it's not tied into um, his achievements or something because you did well
Right.
in sports. So let's transition over to in these justified rejection cases, going back to where maybe a parent has substance abuse, mental health problems, or they're not there to be that the appropriate caregiver or the show up, there's chaos. What's the challenges that you see when there's legitimate reasons for a child rejecting a parent, but the trauma doesn't reach the criteria for a CPS involvement or criminal abuse?
Yeah. You know, um, we don't we don't have a good path. We have a really good path for, oh, your parenting skills weren't very good and you made some mistakes, but your child, you have some good um a good relationship structure underneath with your child, and we think that you can um grow and develop skills and do better parenting with your child. We feel good. There's hope for that. A lot of hope for that. And then there's this other subset where a parent has, emotionally injured a child enough that the child says no.
Yeah.
And my experience is that there is inherent pressure to find a way to reconnect these two, although we don't have a very good path for it. So, in trauma informed care, the person that's been wounded is or injured is the one that leads the process, right? I seek help, I seek treatment and recovery to heal, and then I'm going to be in charge of the outreach. Um, in in the world of divorce, that's really hard, right? Because the court wants to put a schedule on it, they want to put a process in place, and there's just pressure to come up with a solution. Um, if you have a 15-year-old that's saying, I don't want to see my dad was violent, and I had all these bad experiences, and I just don't want to, and I'm not gonna.
But the
Um,
violence doesn't rise to the level where it triggers CPS or criminal case.
it
Maybe
doesn't rise to a level of a criminal case.
maybe
Yeah,
there's a
and
lot of
and
yelling. Right.
yeah, maybe I would say domestic violence that is not uncommon in our families. It's less common. Let's see, domestic violence is sadly relatively common in our families.
Okay.
And within that, there's a subset of kids that say, because of the way that you behaved,
Right.
I don't want contact with you.
Yeah.
For the other parent, if there's been domestic violence, the court's like, oh yeah, we're not going to make you have contact with that parent. Let's issue a protection order or
Protect
whatever.
her. Right.
um, but then with kids, they look for, well, how can I keep the kids safe but still allow for contact? and
Yeah.
and I always want to figure out how to preserve, how to create physical and emotional safety, so
Right.
limit the bad but preserve access to the good.
Okay.
um, but if you look at domestic violence and coercive control as an aspect of that,
Right.
you have a parent that's been violent and controlling, and now you have a child who's pushing back on that, saying, I don't want to be controlled anymore, I'm going to
Yeah.
say no. And again, trauma informed care would be, oh yeah, you need to be able to choose the path forward, because you, as a victim of domestic violence, and isn't this child also a victim, that's what we would want for them.
Hmm.
um, so the challenge is, how do we put put the kid on a path to healing, put the parent on a path
Okay.
to intervention, and then at what point, how do we figure out how to get them back together, right? And
Right.
so I don't have a very good answer for that
Okay.
other than um, it's just, I think for me, it's just the trickiest place because we societally, we are more and more wanting to hear from our kids. We want them to put boundaries. We don't want them to just do what adults tell them to do. We want our kids to
Yeah.
speak up, right? And then we have a problem that they have with the parent. And then we're not we're just not really sure what the best path is. And if it weren't for family court, probably they could go away and just ultimately figure out a solution. The parent could get treatment and change. The kid could get healing and then find their way back together. But that's a
Okay.
lot of ifs, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm just speaking out into the, wilderness here that this is where it's just very tricky. And if it had risen to the level of a criminal case,
Right.
then it wouldn't be in question
Yeah.
if the kid, what this child had to do. Did they have to have contact? We do have kids that respond to forced contact through self harm or threats of
Oh,
self harm.
oh,
And because we're in the litigation space, a challenge is always who's driving that. Is it the parent that doesn't support contact between the child and the rejected parent, right? Are they encouraging the kid, to self-harm or to act out or to do something so that they don't have, it's a solution for the parent and the aligned child? We can't tell. And
mhm.
so I think um, when as therapists, when I have contact with the kid that I feel like their mental health is
Okay.
not stable, like they might self-harm, they are acting out, there's some vulnerability that they have, I am much more inclined to say, look, this kid just needs to be the focus. This kid's mental health has to be the focus. And I'm going to
Yeah.
worry about repairing a relationship with the rejected parent at a different time. That's tomorrow's problem. Today's problem right now is how do we stabilize this child, get this child feeling safe and um, just solid, So fortunately, therapeutically, I feel like if I of those two choices, there's not a lot of great choices, but of those two choices, I do think that there's lots of more and more reasons to um, be conservative, frankly, and decide with ensuring the child's stable mental health. And yes, sometimes that means a bad actor gets away with bad acting, right? Like another parent that's not being fully supportive.
Okay.
Because we can't handle everything and we don't know everything. So I sometimes bad things happen to good people, right? Kind of like your experience, right?
Yeah. Right. And so we were just kind of in we were talking under the umbrella of justified rejection cases, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the next that's very I know it's such a hard dilemma. What about what are your concerns regarding cases who have with kids who have experienced trauma or abuse at the hands of a caregiver, but yet they're in court order to maintain that contact with that parent? So we're kind of dovetailing off what we just talked about.
Are my thoughts about that? I think that when we can get a child, when we can facilitate a child to having contact with a parent, I want to do that. I do want to rally folks, the parent, the child, whoever's in the parent's orbit, to support that. Um, I do. And again, there's a lot of parents, nobody's ever the worst mistake they ever made, right? Like that's just not who people are. And so a lot of people make mistakes and they can learn from that and come back from that. I do believe parents love their children at their core, right? And they want to be a
Okay.
good parent for that child. And um, so I have a lot of hope and faith in the tools to bring people back together. Um, I think the most difficult part is when a child is just flat out saying no, not going to do it,
And they're court
and
ordered.
they're court ordered, yeah, and they, you know, a lot of kids. I actually wish we knew the percentage of kids, right, that was just flat out refusing, and the aligned parent is saying, I'm doing everything I can. I
Right.
can't get them there. Um,
Especially
and
when they're teenagers, like a 16-year-old boy.
yeah, yeah. I think that if we in the um, field had great confidence that the aligned parent or the favored parent had done everything that they could,
Right.
and the kid just wasn't going to do it.
Right.
And I've said things to parents like, okay, well, if your child refuses contact with the other parent, you can't force them, but you can't reward them. Your job
Oh
then
yeah.
is they don't get to
Sure.
stay home and play video games,
Right.
right? Like they don't get
Go
to
out with
stay
their friends.
home. Yeah, exactly. This is not, they are not following your expectations for them. So how do you respond to that, right? So I do think that, and if I had 100% confidence that a parent was doing those things and the child still wasn't going to go, um, then I that's a different place than if you feel like the other parent, just the favored parent just isn't supportive. And
Right.
if you're a rejected parent, you are never going to believe that favored parent is 100% supportive, right?
Right.
So everybody has slightly different points of view, and then
Mhm.
you have a kid at the center, and so it's all I always hesitate when I think about, and I will admit, I call the legal process a meat grinder for families. I
Yeah.
just think that all the pressures that go on the parents that come down to the kids, I don't always know what the right thing is,
Mm. Right.
candidly. So,
Well, okay, so we're in that situation, right? Where the favored parent, the aligned parent, is doing everything they can to get the kid to go. And this kid who's a teenager doesn't want to go to the rejected parent because that there's a viable it's a justified rejection, like you were saying. So let's just say that that parent was emotionally and verbally abusive. And the child's like, no, I don't want to go. Now, couldn't a solution be that the child and that rejected parent do counseling together or individual counseling?
I mean, it could be
Okay.
if the child is willing to consent to that.
Okay.
A lot of kids are ethically they're supposed to consent, right? You can say yes or no to treatment.
Hmm.
And so if a
Okay.
kid says no, I'm not going to do it, they're not actually a party to the case, right? They're not
Hmm.
under court order.
Right.
And so as a therapist, if a child says I'm not going to participate, I can't I can't make them,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And so, and this happens in cases where it's more mixed, more hybrid, right? Where it's some bad parenting or poor I'll call it unskilled, some unskilled parenting and
Right.
some, you know, unskilled responding by the other parent, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the waters are a little muddy. And then again, you have a child that's saying, I'm not going to do this. And in the as there's, when they're 16 and older, I myself have greater reluctance um, to engage in behavior that I feel is coercive to a child, right? To really pressure them or to, if I can't find a way for a kid to buy in,
Mm.
then
Okay.
It's tough. And I have like one family, I have a teen that's 17,
Wow.
and I've asked, here's what I think I can help you with,
Right.
your parent. And I might you might not feel like you ever want to have contact with your parent. You'll probably have a little though throughout your life, right?
Yeah.
You have a sibling, there'll be holidays or whatever. So
Yeah.
you'll probably have some. And maybe the best thing that we can get for you out of this process is for you to develop skills to manage when you do have contact with the parent, when you do
Oh,
have to spend time.
yeah.
So to
Right.
limit the vulnerability, to maximize your ability to get something good, and then to be able to leave, when you're done with it. And if
Yeah.
that's that, to me, that's worth helping you get, if that's a skill you would like to acquire. Um, and so far, this 17-year-old is buying in. Not gung ho, not like, yeah, I'm totally into this, but I'm
Yeah.
not saying no. And I'll take that.
I like that. I mean, that's a good way to tell your child in terms of the counseling, like, look, this is to help you do, like, I know you're upset with with the other parent, and this counseling, this meeting with the therapist is to help you develop skills. And we all
Yeah,
need skills to handle life and situations and problems.
yeah.
And well, in a way to develop skills, particularly to handle this parent, because it's all about, like you said, vulnerability, emotional
Hmm.
dysregulation when I'm around that parent, and what can I do where if I'm in that space, I can be grounded and steady and stable
Yeah,
and
yeah,
feel secure.
yeah. What I wish I could tell kids was this this personality that you're avoiding,
Yeah.
this personality will find you for the rest of your life in other people in other forms.
True.
It doesn't go away. So,
Yeah. There you
and
go.
I get it. You don't want to deal with this today.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But it's not just that parent. Like, it genuinely is
Yeah.
a pattern of coping
Ah.
that will just keep presenting itself to you.
So you might as well just deal with it now because it's not going to go away.
You're
Might
going to save
as
yourself a lot of therapy dollars
well,
later on,
a lot of therapy.
or you could, right? So, um, and some kids are, yeah, they kind of get it. They're like, yeah, yeah, all right. They feel like it's
Yeah.
probably best for me. This is
Mm.
probably a good idea. And some other kids are what I call spicy, and they're just
Spicy.
angry. Yeah, they're just,
Yeah.
they're angry. They don't want to deal
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
They got strong feelings. And so, and I'll so a small subset of the cases that we see are justified rejection, but a lot of them are more parents and a parent and a child that had a number of bad interactions, and that can be solved, that can be remedied. And um, trying to find the sweet spot of, is the child still amenable to this
Okay.
process, and amenable by age or by personality or anger, whatever it is, will they buy into this, and will their favored parent also be supportive and say, this is really better for you long term, right? And I honestly, I find most parents do express a wish for their child to have a good relationship with the other parent.
Yeah.
The other parent doesn't feel that.
Okay.
They don't believe it, which is fair. It's litigation. Everybody's against
Yeah.
each other.
It is. And you said it appropriately. It is. It's family court system. When families are in conflict, it's a meat grinder, and we don't have perfect solutions. It's
Mm-mm.
not good.
We're
So,
trying though.
I
We
know.
do try, and that's what I do like
Yeah.
about the system. And I like that with, the trainings that I've given, that
Yeah.
I've gone
Yeah.
to about all this. I mean, people genuinely care. This is a
Me
really
too.
common problem. It's a really common problem. And people care because they don't, they hate these cases, but people care because it's touched them, right? Like a lot of people have had this experience or they know someone who is having it. And
True.
yeah, it's just, it's pretty common.
It's true. And this is a tough line to be in, and you don't do this work unless you care.
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope we all do work that we care about, but but there is for me, I like work that I call chewy, where it's
Oh,
like engages your brain and you got to think about it and it's not easy necessarily, it's not just plug and play, but I'm
yeah.
always going back to the drawing board with like,
Oh,
what about this family? What would work for them kind of thing. Um, it does engage me. I do care.
yeah. Do you have any, I mean, you've been doing this for 20 years, over 20 years. Do you have any, I don't know, I guess any final thoughts or insights you want to share about your practice and how parents who are caught in this dynamic of these parent-child contact problems, PCCP, what would you say, I guess, to the parent who is the rejected parent?
Yeah.
Or,
Can I share a success story?
oh, please, please.
Okay, good. So I have a success story that was really early on
Okay.
in my work with families. So I don't know, pretty early on, and it was a family where divorced mom, dad, two kids, and there had been domestic violence. There was just a lot of high conflict. This is a family that needed like a parenting coordinator to help them, make
Wow.
agreements and a couple of parenting evaluations. Like there was um, a lot of problems, and the mom was the favorite parent, and she reached out to me a few years ago. So it was maybe like 10 years on, and she just said, "Look, I just want you to give an update. Here we are on a beach in Hawaii, and it's me, my new husband, my two kids, my ex, his
What?
girlfriend. Yeah.
Oh,
And we're all, having a great time.
oh man.
Something happened over the amount of time that we worked together
Yeah.
where my ex just things changed
Okay.
and we were able to work together. He's come, he stayed in my house, he's watched the kids, when I
Wow.
traveled. Like, it's just everything has changed. And again, here we are on this Hawaii beach. And it's a case where there was nothing I could have ever seen in that case where I could have thought, well, that's going to happen, right? In fact, everything was pointing the other direction. And it was such a treat for her to reach out, and to send me that kind of here's how we're ending kind of thing. But
Yeah.
so I think what I would so I guess that maybe that does lead me into what I would tell people is that
Okay.
you really don't know where things are going to end up. And I think a lot of parents are really attached to the childhood period of their
Yeah.
children,
Uh-huh.
and I get it. I get it. There's a lot there. Everybody wants to be part of that, the influence, the guiding, the experiences, all that good stuff. Your child's lifespan, you're going to know your child as an adult for far longer than you're going to know your child
True.
during their childhood. And
True.
so I really want people to take the long view. What I tell people is I'm trying to preserve a space for you a path for you to continue to have a relationship with this child. I might not be able to get you the time, the contact, everything that you want
Right.
right now, but I want to preserve a space so that, you can have the rest of your life as knowing your child as an adult and them having, then obviously when everybody's an adult, even though you're a parent child, the dynamics do change, right? Adult children get to say what they want, what they don't want, what they'll allow, what doesn't work for them, how they want to spend time with you. And I tell parents, be the person your kid wants to spend time with, right?
Oh,
Like you, that's your job. Just be somebody that they want to spend time with. And uh, to the greatest degree, try to let go of the resentment, against the other parent and the fear, which
yeah,
is the hard part, really hard. But when I read about family estrangement, and the research, as I understand it, is that most people do find a way back. I can't tell you how much time it'll take. I can't tell you when
yeah,
it's going to be or what it's going to be over, but there
right.
are there are inflection points in people's lives where they they become more open, and ready to do things
Yes.
that they weren't ready to before. So that's what I want. I want people to take the long view.
Well, yeah, and I just want to share a success story based on my own personal experience. And after being estranged from my son for a year, and this is even having a guardian ad litem come in and make a report. And the guardian ad litem went against the court's 50-50 parenting plan and said my child should be with the father full time, which was ridiculous because that's just a whole nother thing
Wow.
of just the father just heavily manipulating the child so much. Okay, but we're not even going to go down there. But after a year of being estranged from my son, because I kept on showing up for my son, I kept on reaching out to him, telling him that I loved him, wanting to get together, and if showing up to his events, his sporting events and such, and trying to be that safe space, was that he reached he reached out to me one night and said, "Mom, are you free for dinner?" And I said, "Son, yes, I am. You want to go to dinner with me? Wow, yay, that's so great." My son tells me, "Mom, if you're gonna be weird about it, just forget
Right.
it."
Dial it back.
Yeah, I know, but because I was so excited that he
Yeah.
finally like reached out to me and said, "Are you free for dinner?" So it took a year, but we reconciled, and I just went on my first vacation with my two boys to Hawaii
Nice.
for 2 weeks a couple of weeks ago, and that was my first vacation in 2 years since I left the family home. And of course, their father had multiple vacations, but it was so good. And I told myself too, and again, if you're in this, you do have to see a therapist to help you process this. And that's what helped me get
Yeah.
through it. Seeing a therapist and, being that person that I could dump on. So when I was spending time with my kid, I wasn't I wasn't bad mouthing the father. I could just be there and be present, and also to learn skills and tools. Because one of the things my child was trying to ask what's going on with the divorce, and I had to learn how to set boundaries and say, no, that doesn't involve you.
Yeah.
Um,
They don't like
so,
that.
so see a therapist yourself if you're the parent that's rejected, so you can get that support that you need to be
Yeah.
there, present, and show up for your child. And one thing too that my therapist would tell me was that, this is a small blip in your child's life, considering the many years that you have ahead. And I kind of
Yeah.
had onto that. So
Yeah.
yeah, just thank you so much, Jennifer. Just thank you
Yeah.
for your words of wisdom and sharing your insights and your knowledge. Every time I hear you speak, I learn something new, and I feel I grow in terms of
Thank you.
my
Thank you.
understanding and skills as an attorney in dealing with these parent-child contact problems.
Yeah.
So thank
Well,
you.
yeah, I just want to say I'm happy for your experience. I think that
Oh,
it's,
thank you.
you're incredibly vulnerable, just, telling people what your experience is. And that's hard to do. There's a lot of shame around when a child rejects you. It just feels like it's, the worst thing.
Oh, it does.
And I'm so happy that you got the support that you needed. You were steadfast with your child, and you're being rewarded for that.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's sometimes things happen, right?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
you just got to keep on showing up, keep on showing up.
Hmm.
And so now, have people wanted to contact you to either for consulting, coaching, problem
Yeah.
solving, or therapy with
Yeah.
parent-child contact problems, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, they can email me. They can email me at jkeilin at comcast.net, or they can phone me up at 425
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And Kylan is spelled K. Go ahead and spell it for me,
Oh,
please.
yeah, yeah. Sorry. What? There's no standard spelling. It's J Keilin. So Jkeilin at
Okay.
comcast.net.
Okay. And we'll also put your information as well in when the
Perfect.
podcast in the description. Well,
Nice.
um, and oh shoot, I forgot to ask before we end, what's the fun fact that I always like to do this? What's a fun fact that someone wouldn't know about you?
Ooh, oh my goodness. Um, I am a certified scuba diver.
Oh my gosh, that is so
Yeah.
cool.
How fun is that?
Wow. That's amazing. That's very cool.
It is cool.
Well, again, thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us today on our podcast.
Absolutely.
And again, for our listeners out there, you can reach her at jkylan at comcast.net, and we will have her phone number available too. And she is there to for consulting, coaching, problem solving, or therapy with your parent-child contact problems. Um, thank you again, Jennifer, and for all my listeners out there, thank you again for joining us on another episode of the Akiona Law podcast, wherein we talk about anything and everything that intersects in the area of family law and divorce. I am Lani Akiona, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you, and until the next episode, be well.
The information in this podcast is general advice only and should not in any respect be relied on as specific legal advice.